Every 50 years, America's government commits the same financial crime against its own citizens. The pattern is so precise, so predictable, that you can set your calendar by it. 1933, 1971, and now 2026. In 1933, Roosevelt confiscated every ounce of gold Americans owned, then revalued it 69% higher, stealing $2.8 billion from citizens who were forced to sell at gunpoint. Families who had saved gold for generations watched federal agents seize their wealth. Un détrait d'offertement. The government paid $20.67 per ounce, then immediately declared the same gold worth $35. Citizens couldn't buy it back. Gold ownership remained illegal for 41 years. In 1971, Nixon promised the dollar's gold backing suspension was temporary. That press conference lasted 18 minutes. The lie has lasted 53 years, costing Americans 98% of their currency's purchasing power, while enabling the government to create $34 trillion in unpayable debt. What required $1 to buy in 1971 now costs $7.23. 2026 mark exactly fils Nixon's betrayal, the precise moment when mathematical reality collides with political fantasy. Interest payments now consume $1.5 trillion annually, 25% of all federal revenue. At current growth rates, by 2035, interest alone will exceed 100% of government income. The numbers don't lie, even when politicians do, but this isn't just American history. It's American future. The same families who profited from previous resets are positioning for the next wealth transfer. The same institutions that engineered 1933 and 1971 are designing 2026. And the same lies about temporary measures and economic necessity are being prepared for mass distribution. 2026 marks 55 years since Nixon's betrayal, exactly when historical patterns predict the next collapse. The symptoms are identical to previous cycles. Will it be digital currency reset, international monetary restructuring, or complete dollar collapse? The mathematical countdown has begun. The pattern emerges. 3 modern monetary collapses, 1933 to 2026. American monetary history reveals a consistent pattern of crisis, collapse, and reconstruction that repeats every 2 to 3 generations. Each cycle follows identical phases: initial stability, gradual abuse, accelerating crisis, sudden collapse, and emergency reset with promises of permanent stability. The first collapse, the Federal Reserve Bubble, 1913 to 1933. The Federal Reserve was created in 1913 to provide elastic currency that could expand during economic growth and contract during downturns. Within 16 years, this elasticity had created the largest speculative bubble in American history. Followed by the most severe economic collapse the nation had ever experienced. The Fed's founders promised stability. Instead, they delivered chaos. Between 1921 and 1929, the Fed expanded the money supply by 62%, while keeping interest rates artificially low at 3.5%. This cheap credit flowed directly into stock market speculation. Margin buying became commonplace. Investors could purchase stocks with just 10% down payment, borrowing the rest. Stock prices separated completely from economic reality. Radio Corporation of America rose from $85 to $549 per share in 1928 alone, despite earning no profits. General Electric climbed 298%. The entire market increased 345% between 1924 and 1929. Taxi drivers and shoeshine boys dispensed stock tips. Everyone believed the bubble was permanent prosperity. The Fed expanded credit dramatically during the 1920s, enabling stock market speculation that divorced asset prices from fundamentals. When the bubble collapsed in 1929, bank failures and monetary contraction caused economic devastation lasting over a decade. Within 3 years, industrial production fell 46%, unemployment reached 25%, and 9,000 banks failed. Roosevelt's response included gold confiscation, currency devaluation, and Federal Reserve restructuring that fundamentally altered America's monetary system. The crisis that the Fed created became the justification for massive government expansion and the beginning of the modern fiat currency system. The second collapse, the Bretton Woods breakdown 1971. Bretton Woods established the dollar as global reserve currency backed by gold convertibility for foreign governments. The system appeared to create unprecedented monetary stability and American prosperity, but contained mathematical contradictions that guaranteed eventual failure. The Bretton Woods system was designed during World War II when America held 70% of the world's gold reserves while Europe lay in ruins. The deal seemed perfect for everyone. Foreign governments received dollars as good as gold, while America gained the privilege of paying for imports with currency it could create at will. The Triffin dilemma predicted that reserve currency status required persistent trade deficits that would eventually undermine currency credibility. As dollars accumulated overseas through American spending, foreign governments recognized America lacked sufficient gold to honor conversion promises. By 1965, foreign governments held $14 billion, while America possessed only $13.2 billion in gold. France's President Charles de Gaulle understood the trap first. He called America's setup an exorbitant privilege and began demanding gold conversion in 1965. Other nations followed. Belgium converted $150 million. Switzerland converted $50 million. The gold drain accelerated as confidence collapsed. Nixon closed the gold window in 1971 when French conversion demands threatened to drain American gold reserves completely within months. The temporary suspension was announced during a Sunday night television address to prevent market panic. 53 years later, gold convertibility has never been restored. The temporary suspension became permanent, forcing the world onto pure fiat currency and beginning the current system of unlimited money creation that has produced today $34 trillion debt crisis. The third collapse, the fiat currency endgame, 1971 present. The post-1971 system enabled unlimited money creation constrained only by foreign willingness to accept dollars. For 50 years, America consumed more than it produced while exporting inflation globally through the petrodollar system. The mathematical limits are approaching. Government debt grows exponentially while output grows linearly. Foreign nations build alternative payment systems. The dollar's share of global reserves declines. The next collapse becomes inevitable. The 50 to 60-year generational cycle, why America forgets. The monetary collapse cycle repeats because it spans exactly 2 to 3 generations, long enough for institutional memory to fade. Generation 1, the builder 0 to 20 years, design new structures with safeguards against previous abuses, implement conservative policies, and maintain fiscal discipline. Generation 2, the managers to 0 for 0 years, inherit stable systems but gradually modify them for political purposes. Begin exploiting monetary flexibility for social programs and military expansion. Generation 3, the abusers for 060 years, know only stability and assume it's permanent. Aggressively exploit system capabilities while ignoring long-term consequences. The reset crisis forces change. Mathematical reality overwhelms political manipulation. Crisis forces rapid reconstruction. The mathematical inevitability, why 2026 completes the current cycle. The current monetary system faces mathematical constraints, making collapse inevitable regardless of political decisions. The numbers are not opinions, they are mathematical facts that no amount of political rhetoric can change. The debt explosion. Federal debt grew from $400 billion in 1971 to $34 trillion in 2024, an 85-fold increase in 53 years. This explosion occurred during the greatest economic expansion in human history, proving that debt grows faster than the economy under any conditions. Interest payments now consume $1.5 trillion annually, representing 25% of federal revenue. Each 1% increase in interest rates adds approximately $340 billion to annual interest costs. At current growth rates, interest will exceed 40% of revenue by 2030 and 100% of revenue by 2035. Beyond that point, even if all government spending stopped except interest payments, the debt would continue growing through compound mathematics. The Federal Reserve cannot suppress interest rates indefinitely without destroying dollar credibility internationally. Foreign governments and investors will not accept negative real returns forever when alternative currencies and gold offer positive returns. The international challenge. BRICS nations representing 40% of global population build alternative payment systems that bypass dollar infrastructure entirely. China and Russia now conduct 30% of bilateral trade in national currencies rather than dollars. This percentage increases monthly as alternative systems gain capability and confidence. Central banks accumulated over 2,000 tons of gold in 2022 and 2023, the fastest pace since 1950, while actively reducing dollar reserve holdings. Poland increased gold reserves by 100 tons. Turkey bought 148 tons. China officially bought 225 tons, but likely acquired much more through state entities. This coordinated global shift away from dollars accelerates as sanctions demonstrate that dollar holdings provide no security against American political decisions. The domestic crisis, Social Security, and Medicare face mathematical insolvency as baby boomers retire at rates of 10,000 per day through 2030. The trust funds will be exhausted by 2034, forcing it to 25% benefit cuts or massive general fund transfers that would double current deficit spending to $3.6 trillion annually. These obligations are contractual and demographic. They cannot be avoided through policy changes or economic growth assumptions. They represent mathematical certainties that will force massive government spending increases. Beginning in 2025 to 2026, precisely when international pressure on the dollar reaches maximum intensity. The crisis triggers what will cause the 2026 collapse. The debt ceiling crisis. Future debt ceiling negotiations will occur with higher debt levels and greater international skepticism. A default would trigger international confidence crisis, accelerating de-dollarization. The Federal Reserve policy trap. The Fed faces impossible choice between inflation and recession. This trap will force explicit monetary financing of government operations, destroying international dollar credibility. The geopolitical catalyst, military conflict with China over Taiwan, would force immediate economic decoupling. Even without conflict, continued tension encouraged dollar alternatives. The 2026 reset scenarios. 3 possible outcomes. Scenario A, the CBDC digital reset. Federal Reserve implements central bank digital currency with programmable money, enabling unprecedented control. Citizens who comply receive full access. Dissidents face automatic financial exclusion. Scénario B, SDR Global Currency Transition IMF. Special drawing rights become global currency, replacing dollar reserve status. America remains important, but no longer dominant, similar to Britain after sterling's decline. Scénario C, le complète dollar collapse international triggering rapid dollar decline and domestic hyperinflation. greatest domestic hardship but forces genuine economic restructuring. The consistent elements, what every reset includes. Despite different triggers and mechanisms, American monetary resets share common elements that suggest what to expect from the 2026 transition regardless of specific scenario. Wealth confiscation and transfer. Every monetary reset includes mechanisms that transfer wealth from savers to debtors, from individuals to institutions, and from domestic to international interests. The 1933 gold confiscation, $1,971 devaluation, and quantitative easing programs all follow this pattern. The 2026 reset will include similar wealth transfer mechanisms disguised as economic necessity. Possible methods include forced bond conversions, retirement account restructuring, property tax increases, or direct wealth taxes justified by crisis conditions. Constitutional and legal changes. Monetary resets require legal authority that may not exist under normal conditions. Emergency powers, executive orders, and congressional legislation typically grant expanded government authority over economic activity and individual property rights. The 2026 reset will likely include constitutional challenges and legal precedents that permanently expand government control over monetary and economic systems. Emergency measures become permanent features of the new system. International renegotiation, American. Monetary resets affect global economic relationships and require international cooperation or acquiescence. Previous resets involved formal international agreements or unilateral actions that forced international adaptation. The 2026 reset will require international monetary coordination on a scale exceeding previous transitions. Success depends on maintaining sufficient American influence to shape international outcomes rather than simply accepting international decisions. Psychological acceptance. Public acceptance of monetary system changes requires crisis conditions that make alternatives appear impossible. Previous resets occurred during wars, depressions, or international crises that provided psychological justification for radical changes. The 2026 reset will require similar psychological preparation through crisis management that convinces the American people that fundamental change is necessary for survival and prosperity. The predictable playbook, how the 2026 reset will unfold. Phase 1, denial and delay to 02 for 2025. Officials deny systemic problems exist, attributing warnings to temporary disruptions. Policy responses focus on minor adjustments rather than fundamental reforms. Phase 2, emergency declaration early 2026, a trigger. Event provides justification for emergency measures impossible under normal conditions. Changes presented as temporary crisis management. Phase 3, wealth confiscation, mid-2026. Emergency measures include wealth transfer mechanisms justified as shared sacrifice. Previous patterns suggest forced asset conversion or direct wealth taxes. Phase 4, system reconstruction, late 2026. New monetary architecture implemented through technological innovation and international agreement. Changes presented as modernization rather than system failure. Phase 5, Victory Declaration 2027 to 2028. Officials declare new system superior. Claiming crisis response demonstrates American adaptability. Economic statistics manipulated to show improvement. The cycle begins again with a new monetary system that the next generation will eventually abuse into collapse, continuing America's pattern of monetary self-destruction and reconstruction. The historical lesson: nothing is permanent except change. America's monetary history teaches one fundamental lesson: no monetary system is permanent. And believing in permanence guarantees destruction. Every generation assumes their monetary arrangements are final solutions to permanent problems. Every generation learns otherwise through crisis. The current system will end just as the previous systems ended, not through foreign conquest or natural disaster, but through mathematical reality that overwhelms political manipulation. The only questions are timing and mechanism. 2026 represents the mathematical conclusion of trends that began in 1971. The debt cannot be repaid. The deficits cannot continue. The international system cannot be maintained. The domestic contradictions cannot be resolved. Change is coming whether Americans choose it or not. The wise prepare for transition. The foolish assume permanence. History suggests which approach provides better outcomes when monetary systems reach their mathematical limits. The collapse cycle will continue until Americans learn to build monetary systems based on mathematical reality rather than political convenience. Until that unlikely development occurs, expect the pattern to repeat with the same generational precision. That has defined this modern cycle since 1933. The next reset begins soon. The only question is whether it leads to greater prosperity or deeper crisis. History suggests crisis is more likely, but the choice remains ours to make.